Issue regarding education is access of information. Remember, education is learning, is a learning process. So if you don't have information, it becomes difficult. So if you have good access or easy access to information, then the learning process becomes easier. So the access of information has been enhanced or improved. It has enabled interactive learning. I think maybe the students can witness. Before, we used to learn in a very traditional way. A teacher stands in the class, and then the students on the other side, and they teach. But nowadays, with ICT, there are so many applications that the same content or material, students can interact with the material and learn. So, and studies have found that when you interact with something, it's much more easier to learn. It's like, say, driving. Yeah? You cannot learn driving without having to drive a car. Sindio? You can't learn how to cook without getting into the kitchen. So that is interactivity. So nowadays, ICT has enabled a lot of learning applications to be interactive, so the learning process becomes more effective and more enjoyable, especially for the young students. But also availability of learning platforms. So all these interactive applications cannot be done without having enabling environment. And we have a lot of learning platforms like Moodle, DigiCampus, etc., which are online. And we also have materials online, because you cannot expect a book that is physically here to be online without it being digitized. So we have digital learning materials that are online, can be accessible from learning platforms. But a lot of educational applications, educational apps, I think, again, the students can probably tell there are a lot of apps that you can download and learn different topics at your own time. So ICT has enabled that. But another thing is, this learning is now accessible by a larger audience, okay? Not only limited to a certain group of people sitting in a class or in a certain group of people in a library. It's now available to a wider audience, and that's what we need to, that is what we achieve, we aim for, reaching a wider audience in learning. Another area of ICT is security. Security, not the physical security, rather, but I would say the soft security. Issues like cyber security, maybe people here from the police force can witness. Online fraud systems, detection of forgery of documents can also be done using text and image processing. So security is a very big area that ICT is now applied.
The contribution of this, the University of Dar es Salaam, through the Institute of Marine Science, we encourage the sea cucumber farming after we search those marine creatures for a long time, and then we encourage also the farming of some of the marine species, fin fishes like pompano or kole in Swahili. But currently we are trying now to find the good quality fish feeds for the pompano in order to encourage more stakeholders or coastal communities to engage in this new mariculture industry for their improvement of their living standards, improve their food and nutrition security, and sometimes to improve their individual income and their contribution to the national income. And apart from that, there are some of the marine scientists involved in the conservation issues. Especially for the dolphins. We provide the knowledge, we provide the trainings to how to handle the dolphins for the ecotourism, because there is some issue of the dolphin watching, which are attracted many tourists to those areas where the dolphins are located. So the contribution of the university is to train those tour guides how to handle those dolphins and so on, to improve those ecotourism in general, which in turn it contributes to the gross domestic product of the Zanzibar economy. Another thing in the issue of conservation, some of the researchers, they are the member of the technical advisory committee, mostly in the deep sea fisheries authorities and some of the marine park and reserves unit, where they provide the direct knowledge on how to conserve some of the marine creatures, just like the silicans, which is the new discovered fish species in Tanga. And apart from that, also some of the UDism scientists through the East of Marine Science, they participate in the zonation of the marine parks or marine park and reserve conservation areas in both Tanzania mainland and the Zanzibar Island.
Solution kind of technology, highly inevitable, and we always need ICT in our daily life. And then went through another very important sector, the marine science, the fishing, nutrition. We all need to eat fish to be healthy. But then people would say, maybe then we don't need the political systems. Are we homo politicus? Is it that important for the political system for us to have prosperity and development? So that would be my first question to Dr. Makulilo. How does the political system contribute to our social, economic development process? And you as a researcher, how do you contribute to ensure that we are positively affected by this political system? Welcome.
Politics, in one way, is used to allocate resources. So if we are talking about resource allocation, we are touching politics. If we talk about power and authority, we are talking about politics. So we find power, authority in schools, at home, and everywhere. If we find some people try to negotiate, that is politics. They'll use compromise and everything. So that's politics. If you understand, I mean, you get it clearly, is that politics is everywhere. So the processes that are involved in politics, there are several. And if I'll just try to mention some of these, we have decision-making process. We have participation as a process. We also have conflict resolution. We also have policy making. We have elections, and so many. So you find our lives are involved in all these processes. In what sense? A political process is a process of formulating and administering public policies. And public policies concerns our lives. There are policies that touches social services like water, health, and so forth. So these policies are prepared, they are formulated to solve particular social and economic problems. Like we have a lot of problems, if I'll say in our environment right now, we have a problem of, let's say, financing of higher education. Students are struggling to see that they access education because it is now that you have to pay for the education. So it is your parent, it's your relatives who have to pay for the education. And for the government, because of this policy formulation, the government tries to make sure that those who cannot have access to the education are facilitated by loans. That is one thing. So how do we correlate, how do we relate it with the socioeconomic well-being? Socioeconomic well-being may refer to a mix of factors that produce the best outcomes. These best outcomes are for the individual, like we are here. We always expect good things. So I have a couple of indicators or factors that actually shows well-being. One is income. The higher the income somebody has will make access to what we call a life satisfaction. That a person will be satisfying himself or herself because has income. As I'm saying, because of these policies that actually have introduced user fees, for example, will make people to pay for services. So you need income to pay for the services. And how do we pay this? It should be determined by the government. A government that is chosen by the people, a government that serves the interests of the people. Another thing is employment. Employment, we are talking about also pay. A good paying job will give an individual an opportunity to earn good income and be able to pay for social services.
I will now go to Dr. Ichumbaki. Being a scholar on history, culture, and heritage, in some situations, someone will tell you, if he tells you you are old school or you are like in the acts of the past, sounds like an insult. But I think there's a lot to borrow from the values which are within our history and our tradition. From your research on these particular areas, how have you contributed to improving our own values of today, but at the same time also improving the tourism sector in this society of Tanzania because of the research which you have been doing? Karibu sana, Dr. Ichumbaki.
With the question, maybe we have heard various things from ICT personnel, from marine science, as well as from political science. But we haven't heard about medicine, business, and so many things. Maybe I should take you into medicine and ask if we have any person in the audience who has never been sick. That means you have never been to the hospital since you were born. If there is any, please put up your hand. So you have all been sick at some point. Now, when you go to hospital, the first question a doctor asks you is, when did this start? When did this problem start? When did you begin becoming ill? He wants to know the history. So from the medical point of view, they say the ability to master and understand a particular disease depends on the ability to understand its history. The same applies to the life of human beings. Our ability to master ICT, to master marine science, to master political science and the entire environment depends on our ability to understand the past, to understand what was happening in the past so that you can predict, you can make grounds for the future. So from the archaeology and cultural heritage point of view, we are saying there are quite a number of sites, quite a number of important localities that we visit, either for enjoyment or for learning or for different activities. And some of these, for instance, if you can see on the board, on your right-hand side, left, this is the 14th century Palace of Kilwa, and this is a 16th, 15th century settlement of Pangani. And these are very popular, important markers of where we are coming from and how life was so many years ago. That's the first hypothesis. The second hypothesis is that these sites I have mentioned, regardless of where they are located, be it in Tanzania or be it elsewhere, they are very much needed by us academics, by us researchers, by historians, by students, and many other people, rather than the way they are needed by the local people who are living very close to these sites. So if we compare who needs Bagamoyo, for instance, who needs Kilwa, between a university student who is doing history, archaeology, and a person living nearby, you find that a person from the university, a researcher, is very much needing this rather than the local people. And the third hypothesis is that the local people we are talking about, the people we are saving, they live very close to these sites than we who are doing academics, who are doing research, who are living very far away from the sites. And therefore, if there is a person who is able to protect the sites, is the person on the ground than me who is visiting these places for a week, for a month or so to do research. And because of these three issues, that there is every necessity that we researchers, we visitors like tourists, we need to be concerned with the people's problem. We need to be concerned with lack of water on the ground, unemployment issues, hunger. The need to produce livelihoods to the people is critical if we need this particular future to be necessary. Now the question is, how do we, historians, archaeologists, heritage professionals, make our research relevant, become innovative so that the type of research we do, the type of outputs we produce does not benefit ourselves. It trickles down into the ground and it makes people somehow enjoy the benefits of research. And that's where innovation and the desire to protect these and the desire to support the local people becomes necessary.
We all know that we are not alone in this planet. There are other organisms surrounding us, and together with them we form what we call the ecosystem. Whatever that happens in this environment and when things don't go well, then there's a problem for all of us, not only for these other creatures or for the environment, but also for human. We know that there are changes which are happening right now. The climate is not behaving the way it used to behave or the way it is expected. And because of the climate change, we see effects. Farmers and communities, rural communities are being affected socially and economically. So I would like to know, how does the University of Dar es Salaam supporting or assisting the Tanzanian society and the global society in becoming resilient and adaptive to these changes which are coming to the climate?
The University of Dar es Salaam in 2013 actually realized the need to have a center where it can be a think tank, at least to generate knowledge, support policy, and support communities to enhance adaptation, and eventually that will transform our communities to be resilient to the changing climate. So the Center for Climate Change Studies actually, since its establishment, has been key, especially in undertaking research and capacity development and outreach programs, activities that are key to make sure that our nation can be able to get appropriate knowledge, and that can be used or useful for supporting policy and the decision-making processes. So at the Center for Climate Change Studies, of course, working with partners within and outside the country, we are implementing activities which we feel that they are key and they can result into our expectation, especially to make sure that, given that our country is largely depending on climate-sensitive sectors, and agriculture is considered to be the main driver of our economy, of course, Nowadays, given the challenges, I think we are now transforming other sectors to be crucial as well. We feel is a problem that needs effort to be addressed. So we have activities which touches, which are critical. One is capacity development, and of course, capacity development is also needs research, because sometimes you need to understand how, what are the needs, especially on the ground. So in the capacity development, we have PhD and master's programs, which are important in the research process. We have students pursuing PhD and the master's. They are undertaking research, at least to generate the basic knowledge that is required, but also our members, our staff members, have been instrumental to undertake research and, of course, managing projects, which are important. And this project generates a lot of knowledge, and it was our primary purpose, because without knowledge, sometimes adaptation cannot be possible.